God woke me up at about 2 o'clock this morning, and He reminded me when I was younger, we moved 22 times in 1 year because my mother was a single parent and we just didn't have money to pay rent. And I don't remember all the details, but for some reason, we just kept going from house to house to house. And the reason I know it was 22 times is because I remember having a talk with my aunt, and I remember counting out all of the addresses, reciting them. I kind of made it into a game, reciting all of the addresses we lived at. And I didn't realize why she was tearing up and crying, because I thought it was kind of cool that I could remember all of the addresses that we lived at. In fact, right now, I still remember some of those addresses in my head when we were down in Little Arkansas. And it just, I don't know, God just woke me up this morning and put it in my heart to talk about that some more. And so where I want to go with this is all this time God was preparing me, and I had no idea. It certainly didn't feel like preparation at the time. So if you've watched my video or listened to the podcast, I think I titled it, Don't Waste That Golden Pain. I think that's what it's called. I kind of touched on this a little bit in that video, but I just want to take it a little further from a specific angle. So just bear with me a minute. So for those who did not see that video, just sort of a backdrop. My mother was a single parent. She was an amazing woman of God, by the way. But, she just didn't have a lot of money. And so we were on welfare and on public aid pretty much all the way through when I went to college. And by the time I went to college and was getting ready to graduate, by that time my mother was finally finishing college herself. God rest her soul now. But we moved 22 times in 1 year. And I remember the times when we were eating out of food pantries. There was always some sort of community church or some sort of a food truck or something that would pull up. Even when we lived in the projects, and we lived in the projects quite a bit, depending on where we were at the time. I don't want to go into too much detail and bore you with my story, but I originally grew up in parts of Arkansas, and then we moved up north. But when I look back and I think about, the time when we were standing downtown, and it's still to this day hard for me to talk about. And here I am right at 50 years old as of the recording of this video. We got away from a really bad situation. And my mother basically went to a Greyhound bus station. And I'll never forget, she asked the Greyhound, the person behind the counter, where's the next bus going? And he said, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She said, then that's where we're going. And I no longer live in Wisconsin, but that's where we went when I think I wasn't even 11 or 12 years old at that time. And we literally had nothing, literally nothing. I don't even remember if I had on shoes, to be quite honest. And I'm not trying to exaggerate. I don't recall if we even had on shoes. And that's when I recall seeing my mom downtown and asking, someone for money to be able to make a phone call. And it dawned on me, oh my God, we have nothing. So, the little entrepreneurial spirit that God's always given me, I would start going door to door and selling artwork and painting on people's walls. And, I just think about all the things I was doing back in the day just to kind of help, my mom out. And again, she was an amazing woman of God, and we got through it. And but I'm going somewhere with this, is that when I look through all the things that I've been through in life, and there's been so many stories, I don't want to bore you with everything in one episode here, but so many stories of hardships and things that we went through. I just had no idea that God was preparing me, and that's what He put in my heart early this morning, that all along that was preparation for where He knew He would get me down the line. And let me explain. Throughout all of that, and I said this in another episode about my mom. My mother always praised God. She always kept her faith. And no matter what, if we didn't have a dime and we're heading to a pantry to eat, she would be teaching us about God and saying something about Him. So I didn't realize at the time, but I get it now. God was building this foundation inside of me, these blocks. And I'll call one of the blocks like empathy, right? So being able to have empathy in situations. Another block, let's just call it compassion. Being able to have compassion for people who are in need. I think another block we can call tenacity. We can call a block perseverance. Because when you come from almost nothing and you don't have a dime to your name, right? You learn to persevere through some things. And now as an adult in life, when I go through things, no matter what it is, whether it's in my business or my family or whatever I'm going through, I always resort back to, wait a minute, well, God pulled me through that. I made it through that situation. Like, this is nothing compared to what I went through, because we didn't have nothing. Like, we were downtown, like, okay, where are we going to go? We had no house, no nothing. Just my mom and my sister and my brother. That was it. So he was preparing me, and he, it's almost as if he also like installed a drain inside of me. And this drain was to drain out pride, arrogance, self-righteousness. And I sincerely mean that. And where I'm going with that is, I think God, I know God knew what he had in store for me and the direction he would take my life. But if I can be very honest with you all, and I'm just speaking for me, I can't speak for you, I don't even know you, but for me, had I not gone through the things that I went through, and I'm only sharing a tiny nugget, this isn't even a half of 1% of some of the hard things that I've been through in life. You just have no idea. That would be several books all by itself. But anyway, had I not gone through some of the hardships and some of the things that I went through in life, there's no way that I could handle what God has done for me now. And I'm not saying I've arrived, because God is still working on me and he's not finished with me yet. But there's no way that I could handle it. I would think that I got here by my own strength. I would think, well, I went and got my bachelor's degree, and I came from, very rough neighborhoods and from the projects, and I got my master's degree, and I run a company, and I do this, and da-da-da. The pride would be so thick that I wouldn't even be able to see beyond it. But because God pulled me from where I was at, because God protected me when we were in situations where we could have easily been taken out, easily. We were in some of the most gang-related territorial areas in some of the projects that I lived in. I don't even want to give the names because I don't want to offend or hurt anyone that still lives there. But let me just say, because he pulled me, and I'm not talking financial, I'm talking pulled me, period, spiritually, because he kept me. There's no way I can allow pride to rear its ugly head to say that I got here on my own. He was preparing me that entire time. The reason I'm speaking into a camera is because of all of that mess. I would be out somewhere making money right now, to be quite honest with you guys, instead of speaking into a camera to people I don't know. And the only benefit that I really get from this is that I'm walking in obedience to God and I'm doing what he's telling me to do. But if I didn't really, at least for me, and I'm just speaking for me, so don't be offended if you ain't been through much in life. Don't feel like, are you saying I got to go through a lot of things to appreciate God? Nope, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying for me, I believe that God was preparing me all along, and I needed to go through those things. That's why I have such a heart for helping kids and helping people, especially kids who've been victims of human trafficking. And if you know anything about me or anything about any of my companies or what I do, that is very important to me. And that's why I care so much about making sure at least I do my very best, God knows I do, to treat people well, especially my staff, my employees, people that are that I know, to have compassion, to show empathy. Because I've been there, I've seen my mother budget, 3 kids and budgeting $92 a month, which is what she was getting from the state. That's how we lived. I know what government cheese tastes like, and powdered eggs and powdered milk and all of that. That's what we had. So anyway, there's a scripture I want to read because I'm probably going a little deeper than you guys were expected. I keep hearing in my heart, I can't even remember the name of the song, but it just says, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all the things that you've done. I don't even remember who sings it now, but I just keep feeling in my heart gratitude. I'm just so grateful to God for what he's done. And I told God this morning, and I'm kind of weird, when I talk to God. I don't know, you guys may not kind of like some of the things I say, but I say stuff like, God, I know you're probably tired of me thanking you. And I know I probably should stop, but I can't, because you got to know how grateful I am. I just always want to have praise on my lips, thanking him. And I think if you've ever been through things in life, you probably can relate to why it touches me so much. When I think about, I could have been dead and gone a long time ago. And he's pulled me and he's kept me. And I'm just grateful. I apologize. I'm sitting here crying, and I don't know if I'm messing up the audio and all this, so I apologize. I wasn't planning on getting all emotional with this, but God just had me up at like 2 a.m. and just almost like showing me a movie of my life. And I just kept saying, I'm just so grateful. All that time you were preparing me. You were laying a foundation. Anyway, there's a passage. Let me read this passage so I can get off of air, because I can barely even see through my glasses right now. By the way, my name is Z. You're listening to, I guess I should have said this earlier, Unlocking Greatness podcast with Zenja Glass. And everyone calls me Z. And if you're listening, great. Please be aware that I also have a YouTube channel. So for some of you that are watching me on YouTube, or listening to the podcast, you might hear the pages rattle in my Bible, because I just want to reference a passage really quickly. In Romans 8, and I'm reading out of the New International Version. And by the way, I read the King James Version as well. Trust me, I grew up on the King James Version. My grandpa and half the people in my family are ministers. But anyway, I've really gone through the New International Version quite a bit, so I'm just reading out of this really quickly. And by the way, I'm not a minister. I want to make that clear. I've had so many people calling me a pastor or a minister, and I'm not. I am just a woman who loves God, and I'm just simply doing what he's told me to do. And he told me to get my butt on a camera, get my butt on a microphone, and start speaking and giving the words that he's given me. And I'm just walking in obedience. So anyway, let me read this passage so I can let you go, because you're probably tired of hearing me right now. Romans 8, verse 28 through, I'll read through 31. It says, and the title of this is called We Are More Than Conquerors. So it's called More Than Conquerors. It says, and we know that in all things, hold on, my Bible's all ripped apart. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. For those God foreknew, he also predestined. Now that's interesting. To be conformed to the likeness of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those he predestined, he also called. Those he called, he also justified. Those he justified, he also glorified. What then shall we say in response to this? If God is for us, who can be against us? This passage encourages my spirit so much, because it allows me to look at my life almost as a movie, and to realize that all along God had this planned out. He knew where I would be even at this time. He was preparing me all along through everything that I went through. All of it as a preparation to one day speak of his glory. So I apologize if this podcast is a little all over the place. And for those of you who know me by now, I don't really write much down at all before I start. None of this stuff is planned. I just kind of get on a camera and just kind of start speaking. And sometimes I'm emotional, sometimes I'm not. So apologize if that bothers some people. But I love you all. I just pray that if there's anyone that's going through hard times right now, and I know so many people are going through a lot, my goodness, I'm hearing it every day. I just want you to consider that just perhaps God is preparing you. Just perhaps he's preparing you. And I don't even think the word perhaps should be in that sentence. Consider that he's preparing you for what he has ahead so that you can be able to handle it when you get there. And not only handle it, to maintain it and keep it so that it doesn't go to your head. And you will know that it is only by the grace of God, only by the grace of God, that you're in that position, or that you've been blessed to that extent, or that you're able to do this or that. Not by your own intelligence, your own might, your own wit, only by the grace of God. So please just consider that if you are going through some things right now. Just consider that God is preparing you. I love you all. I pray that you're encouraged. This is Z with Unlocking Greatness Podcast. Bye-bye. Hi, everyone. This is Z again. Do not forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the notification button. Bye-bye.